Alrighty, Lumberjacks, welcome back to another Greenhorn's Guide to Logging and Forestry. Today we're going to be looking at the forwarders and their operation. So I'm just going to put a disclaimer, some of these mods, like this green guy and this green attachment and the wasp, may not be out by the time you see this video, but they are coming soon, so just bear with me on that. But basically I wanted to show you guys today what the forwarders are, what they do, and basically how to use them. So the reason I have two different types of forwarders is the exact same reason I have two different versions of the link belt, which we were using in the last video. So on this Barco forwarder, the orange one, we have a head on it that tilts. So I'll show you the difference here. So as you can see, this little bit on the end, I actually control the tilt on that. So if I curl it, I can bring it in. If I curl it right, I can bring it out, right? Okay. So on the green machine, we do not have that ability. This is a fixed point on that end, and that's for dangle heads. So the green one is purposefully built for using dangle heads, and the orange one is purposely built for being able to attach fixed equipment heads. So this is a fixed grapple right here. So it's just a solid 1-point grab, and this guy is also a fixed piece of equipment with a single point grab on the top. This one right now is currently the only dangle head, but there might be stuff coming in the future. And I'll show you the operations of both. And I'm also going to show you the operation of the wasp, which is built for this little guy here. So we're going to start off with the Barco, and then I'll probably just show you the operation of some of the equipment, and then we'll actually use the green one for the loading. So the forwarders all have the ability. I'm actually just going to really quickly turn on my oh, this thing's going to load for a second. Basically what I want to do is I want to turn on my stop and go. And stop and go is a feature that allows you to keep driving forward or backwards without having to stop the machine. So I'm driving backwards right now. Oops, there we go. And then I can stop and immediately drive forward. I can immediately drive backward. Now, if that setting is turned off, I actually have to wait for the machine to stop completely, and then I can back up, and then I can go forward. But now I can actually just kind of let it go back and forward. It's not super realistic, but it just keeps smooth movement in all the machines. So on the forwarders, they are very similar to the skidder, in which they have an articulating point in the middle for controlling them, like this. They also have the ability to change driving directions. The chair does not turn around, but you can notice the difference. So if you hit Control B, it actually reverses the direction of driving. So now when I drive forward, it's actually going off the back. And then when I go in reverse, it's actually going forward. But if I hit Control B again, now if I press forward, it's actually driving forward again. And when I push backwards, it's driving backwards in that direction. So a lot of different forwarder operators prefer to work in reverse, meaning that they drive from this angle and go backwards, because then they can grab wood and throw it onto the truck and then just drive forward when they're done. This is also a way I like to do it. Now, you don't have to do it that way. You can just drive forward on the path and grab the wood that way as well. But for the most part, it is better if you hit Control B and then drive in forward, which puts you kind of in this angle for picking up logs. And we'll go into the log picking up here in just a minute. I just wanted to kind of show the differences for that. So I'm not going to give the log demonstration on the... Oops, I'm just going to fix that real quick. Not going to give the demonstration of picking up logs with the fixed head. I'm just going to show you what it is. We're actually going to pick up the logs on that trail we made using the other dangle head grapple. So again, this is just a regular style fixed head grapple. I like to operate from this crane view. You can operate from first person. It's just a lot harder to, go down and pick up the logs this way. I know it's more realistic that way, but I do really like this crane camera for going in, grabbing my logs. So on these machines, they have a telescoping arm that goes way, way out. So you can actually reach pretty darn far with your head to grab logs off the ground. Meaning you don't have to be parked, directly right next to the logs to pick them up. You can pick them up at a pretty extended distance. Now this guy, like I said, is a fixed head. So we control the tilt of the head 100% with our joysticks. We control the rotation and the opening and closing. Now this thing operates exactly the same as the fixed head that we used in the loading video. So you just, pick up your logs, then you put them in the back of your thing, and good to go. Now, like I said, we will actually go into the log picking up part here in a minute, but we're going to leave this head here because we're going to use the other machine for the log picking up. Now, this guy is a current kind of beta thing that I'm testing, but this is just another version of the processor. It's called a Wasp, which is just a made-up name I had for it because it reminded me of a wasp the way it was shaped. So this guy is just a little mini processor head that attaches to the Barco. And again, this is pretty much, I think, the only thing that it'll connect to. There might be one other machine that it'll work with. But I wanted the ability to, if you wanted to, harvest the wood right into the back of the trailer. So on this head, there's actually a claw built into it that closes for picking up logs. And it's also, like I said, just a straight-up processor head that works. So what we're going to do is we're going to drive out to a different area. So we're going to leave our little forwarder trail that we built, and we're going to drive to a new area. And I'm going to show you guys this. So this guy is basically become kind of an all-purpose... I'm actually just going to stick to the road because I don't really want to go off trail here. It's kind of turned into an all-purpose type of machine, because now you don't really need a processor to go ahead on the trail. You can start cutting your own trails. So you need to tilt your head up, extend. I usually extend this as far out as it'll go, just for comfort. Get your tree, and what are we going to cut to? Let's cut to 5 meters. I like 5s. So you bring it in right next to the tree, and once you get to a cut, give it a snip. And again, this guy works exactly the same as the fixed head. So you can either bring it around like this and then just cut it off to the side. And this is entirely your choice of how you want to do things. You don't have to do it the same way I do it, but... So this is just an example of one of the methods. Cute little processor head. Okay. So now that we've made that little pile there, you can actually use this head's grapple to go in and pick up those logs. And you don't have to put a lot of pressure on them because they kind of tend to wiggle if you do. So then, oops, I'm just going to look down a little so I like to keep my view so I can see kind of my backboard. And then, oops, oh geez, when I'm loading, I will just kind of pencil it against that backboard and put it in there. Again, this guy you got to be a little more finicky with because it's there's so many different collisions happening on these trailers that sometimes they can glitch out if you're not being super duper careful. Now, I always recommend when you're moving the forwarder, you lock the load by hitting L. Now, if you can't get that to lock, like for some reason it's just locking on the head instead of that, if you hit G on your keyboard, it switches between your head and your deck. So I always want to make sure that's locked before I move on to the next tree. That way, if you hit a stump or anything happens, it doesn't blow all the logs right out of your load. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to cut another tree, but I'm going to show you a different technique. So now I have like I said, I have my telescoping arm fully extended, tilt at this degree because you have to get a little bit of distance away to cut. We want that. Oops, and I think I need to get a little bit closer here. There we go. This takes a little bit of getting used to. I've only played with this a little bit, so you guys are seeing about as beta as it can get. I'm just going to pull through here so I can see what I'm doing a little more. Now, with these long trees, or these this long boom, we actually have enough distance away from our trailer that we can drop that tree forward and process back onto our own trailer. And that just saves us a step of picking it up. So now what I say is keep it fully extended. Do your first cut. Oops, I just ran it right into the back of the trailer there. So don't do that. Get your first cut in. And whoops, I am just messing that right up. There we go. And then you can adjust your distance, whether you're far enough or too far. But you can kind of pin it right up against there. So then once you go to do your next cut, it'll actually be lined right up with that, and you can drop it. And I choose not to take the little pieces because I don't want them. So we're going to go in, grab another tree, grip it, and same difference. Again, I would recommend kind of keeping this above your deck So it's like almost above your stakes. And then you can just lower it down into it. That way you're not going to hit them like I just did a moment ago. And then we throw our little top off to the side. I mean, you can keep the tops if you want, but then I unlock my load and lock my load again. And we're going to keep just doing that for a little bit here to show how easy it really is to do. So we're just going to do this tree, and that'll probably be lots. You guys get the point. There we go. And again, techniques for all this stuff does take a little bit of time, so don't expect it to just be super easy and happen. It's just another way to do it. But you're more than welcome to knock down a tree, process it, and then just go in, grab the pieces like I'm doing right now, and you can load them on that way too if you're more comfortable doing that, which is totally, totally fine. I'm just going to throw these in here because we don't really care about this load so much. Bloop. And then you can keep all your little pieces. It's pretty pretty neat. But yeah, like I said, that's kind of a beta thing, but you guys maybe will have fun with it. Just wanted to try something a little different, make an all-in-one kind of machine. Because I have a lot of people who do like single-player campaigns, and they wanted something that would get them the good stuff there. So let's tab to this guy. So now, like I said, this is when we're actually going to do the operation of loading the logs on the truck from the ground. So like I said in that last video, we cut out that little trail with the link belt and the feller dangle. So now we're actually going to go pick that stuff up. So first of all, I'm going to hit Control B because I want that to be forward when I'm driving. Because I like this angle, it's way easier to maneuver. And we're going to go over here. And we're going to grab this guy. Then Q to attach. Now, like I said, this one is a dangle head, so it's a little bit different. It's not like the fixed heads. You got to get used to that. But it is a very, very efficient dangle head, and I've been having a really good time with it so far. So let's go track onto our trail and see what we can find. So now when you're approaching a trail like this, I generally will keep all my wood to the left. It's just easier for me, but you don't have to. If you're in a weird spot and you process it to the right, you can grab from either side wherever you want. There's no real rhyme or reason to exactly what you want to do on that part. So now when you're going in for your grab, I usually extend my telescoping arm that you see going back and forth just about a quarter out, like about there. That way I can actually more efficiently grab this wood. So once I do get it, there we go. I can now, as I'm pulling my load up, I can actually bring it in. And that actually gets it to the cage a little bit faster. So let's just go like this. And like I said, I use this part. I'm going to try to get a view. I use this backboard on there as almost a thing to pencil the wood. So when it drops, it all stays nice and flush. So that's an important thing to remember. Now, my locking straps, as you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but see how they're appearing up here? So when I hit lock, it's actually locking to the head and not the bed of the forwarder. So what you want to do, again, is hit G on your keyboard, G, which switches between implements. So now it's not locking the head anymore, it's locking the trailer. But if I do want that locking on the head, I just hit G again, and now the head locks instead of the base. So, but we're going to hit G because I do want to lock this while I'm moving. And we'll leave this guy here. We'll grab these. I'm not going to get the little bits. Oops, extend that out a little bit. I do really, really, really like this forwarder. I unlock the load when I go in for a drop just so the logs kind of cinch up a little bit better. But you guys can, like I said, develop whatever technique works best for you. Now, like I said, you don't have to get too crazy with your grabs on this stuff, but I just try to get a little bundle, and then I'll go back for the bigger ones. But it's pretty efficient loading with this new dangle head. Now, oh, here's another thing. Okay, so on my grapples, all of them, especially the dangle heads, if you grip the logs too hard, you may notice the head's really out of control, and it almost feels like it's floating a bit. So if you're starting to get the experience, I'm going to try to really ream it out here. See how it's kind of doing its own thing? It's bouncing around. It's not normal. So if you're getting that effect, it means you're squeezing the logs too hard. So just tap your key, let them out a little bit. It should set nice and level like this. And if you're getting any kind of floating stuff going on or this kind of stuff, that means you're gripping the logs way too hard. You need to back off a bit. So grip it even to about that point, just so it's got a nice kind of balance to it. and then you'll be able to load it appropriately. If not, you'll be just chasing the head around all day trying to figure out what's going on, which is no good. So let's grab these wounds. It's all just good little things to remember because once you're operating, I know you guys will run into this stuff, and you may wonder why things are the way they are. All right, so let's keep going down this road. Now, like I said, when you're doing this road, I didn't attach one to it, but you can actually attach... Well, you know what? We probably should. Let's do that just real quick. So I'm going to buy a forestry grinder, which I haven't actually covered in any part of the logging tutorial yet, or the series. So we're going to buy one of those. Now, this thing, I'm not actually going to attach it to this one. I'm going to go back to the Barco here, because we're about the same distance. Oops, let's go all the way back here. So now this forestry grinder, you're able to attach it to excavators. You can attach it to the forwarders, and you can attach it to the skidders. Anything with an attachment point on the front, meaning it's got those little silver bits for an attachment point, will take on these implements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this on the front. So you just drive up to it on the front and hit Q. So now this guy, like I said, is the grinder. So it'll clean up all the stumps. It'll clean up all the little bits of wood that you leave laying around. All you do is hit B, and it starts it up. And then if you hit V, as in Victor, it'll lower it to the ground. So we don't need it lowered quite yet. But normally, if I wanted to go forward, what I would do is I would attach this to the front if I had a really messy trail with lots of bits. Like, see these little pieces right here? So if you hit V, lowers it. Now, if you drive ahead, you can just watch these little pieces will just evaporate. It'll chew them right up. Bloop, 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 and get rid of them. So now if you're cutting a trail that has lots of leftover bits, you can just drive around with your forwarder and destroy all that. And same with stumps. Like I said, we have a little bit of a stump left over from when we cut. You just got to run into it, just vaporizes it. And this keeps keeps everything nice and clean performance-wise as well. So if you're having performance issues, it probably means you have too many logs on the ground because the game is not super optimized for that. In which case, you can just use this guy to drive around, clean up your bits, clean up your bits of stump, whatever you want. But yeah, that's just another thing you can add on there. You can also add a blade to the front of this guy, so if you wanted to plow out your own trail, you could do that. Every machine, for the most part, is very interchangeable for parts. So you can put, plows on the front. You can put, plows or the forestry grinders on the front. You can change out the heads. I just wanted to make everything very, very capable of being interconnectable because not everybody wants the same parts on the same machines. So I just wanted to give everybody the option to do their style of logging, do things the way they wanted to do things. That's just what makes it fun for me anyway. So let's go this way, and like I said, we should be able to almost fill up our trailer here. So let's grab these. So now the purpose, like I said, the purpose of a forwarder is to grab all this wood that you've laid down and bring it back to a remote location for loading. I know in Europe it's a very popular way to process wood for sure. In Canada, I would say it's a less popular form. It's not used as much. Not to say it's not used, but it's not used as much as I would say in places like Europe or other parts of the continent. And I'm not sure about the States if forwarding is a very popular thing. I'm sure they do it, but I don't think it's as big of an industry for logging. So let's just throw this on here. I got a mixture of big logs and small logs. I'm actually just going to go for this pile because I don't really want those big ones mixed on there. You can be selective. And you could be selective, and if you had, 20 piles of big logs, you could come through and just pick up all the little ones first, and then if you wanted just a solid load of big logs, you can come back and grab those. Like I said, again, there's no rules to how you want to do things and how you want to organize stuff. Okay, so you know what? I'm going to call that good. I'm going to say that's good enough for me. I'm just going to lock that, and I'm just going to hang this off the back so it's kind of out of our way. There we go. So like I said, now we got our load kind of piled on there. It's not the most beautiful load in the world, but it'll do. I'm going to hit this button, and then we're going to drive all the way back. So it's up to you what works best for where you want to make piles. But what I would do is, because this is a long road, we're just cleaning it up, bringing all the parts out, and then what I would do is I would bring them right along the side of the road. So, for instance, let's pretend we want to load this up eventually. So what I would do is I'd bring it to our closest logging road, that whether we built it or whether it was pre-existing, and I would put it right about here. So let's go like this. I'll pull that head in a little. And then what I would do is grab these off the back. Might be a little finicky with those big ones. And then I would just pile it along the side of the road right here. And you guys can get as OCD as you want about how perfect your piles are. Because I do so much penciling with my loader, I do not care how these land. I mean, I like to try to keep them somewhat straight, but if they're a little off, I'm not going to be too concerned. So I'm just going to go like that. Keeping your piles straight is a really good practice to have regardless. Especially if you're playing in multiplayer with other guys, it is really nice for the other operators if you keep your piles nice and straight and organized for loading. And it saves yourself time. I mean, why do the same job twice? Try to keep it as clean as possible, right? So let's put that there. And let's grab a little bit more. Now, again, depending on your computer, piling of logs, it depends how much you can actually put on there. Some people can only pile a small amount of logs without getting kind of any frame rate drop and lag. Other people can make piles that are humongous because their computers can handle it. Mine's pretty decent computer, so it can handle pretty decent sized piles. But even this one, which is a pretty decent computer, can get squashed pretty good by the graphics of this game sometimes, or by the physics of this game. Not so much the graphics, more the physics. So let's throw that down there, bloop, just like that. Okay, and then you can just drive away with your forwarder. Oh, try not to run over your own pile. And then you can go head back to the bush if you want or whatever. But yeah, what I would do is bring all those logs out from the bush, pile them up alongside the road, and just like our loading video, I would bring in that 880 with that grapple. I'd park it right here, have a truck come alongside me, and I just grab from this pile and put them onto the truck. It's just a really nice way to be able to pull logs out of the bush without skidding, without feller buncher, without all that stuff. This way you only need either this guy for harvesting, or you need one machine with a processor head for knocking down the trees, and a forwarder. It just eliminates a little bit of equipment. It's a different style of logging that a lot of people like, but there are many different methods to how people log. I just wanted to give you guys a quick example. So yeah, that's basically all there is to forwarding. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.